Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Where there's been a huge protest against President Trump. Millions of people have turned out to join the protests across America and around the world, with a number of celebrities joining the rallies.
After the result of this November's election, I felt as a woman, as an American citizen, a great weight bearing down on my shoulders. The feeling that the near future would present many obstacles, confrontation, and division.
These are the scenes in London as demonstrations take place in Europe and cities right around the world. President Trump, well, he's visiting the CIA shortly after attending the traditional post-inauguration national prayer service. As a senior White House official confirms, Theresa May will travel to Washington to meet the new president this week.
Also on the programme tonight, after 3 days of being buried under snow, 4 people are pulled alive from an Italian hotel buried by an avalanche. Brexit is going to bring down Europe. That's the warning from the French presidential hopeful Marine Le Pen. And no longer a safe Labour seat, UKIP's new leader Paul Nuttall to stand in the Stoke Central by-election.
Hello, very good evening. Live from Washington, where around 500,000 people have descended on the streets of the capital to protest against the new president, Donald Trump. It's thought today's crowds have exceeded the numbers gathered yesterday to watch the inauguration, with organisers saying the volume of people on the streets means a formal march to the White House is impossible. I want to talk about that in more detail with our diplomatic editor who's joining us here, Dominic Waghorn. These are the latest pictures from the White House. Now, there is confusion about what's going on with this march. The rally certainly went ahead. What do we know?
Well, one DC government official who's remaining anonymous because they're not really allowed to be speaking on behalf of the march because they're not organising it. But what they've said is their understanding is that there are just so many people who've turned up to this march, they've basically stretched out the entire length of the march route. And therefore you can't really have a march if your march already occupies the entire length of the route. There's just nowhere to go to. So they've cancelled the march as such, but they've said that those people strung out along that route are now free to make their way down to the place, the location where the march was due to finish, had it been a smaller crowd, which is the ellipse, which is that bit of grass between the White House and the Washington Monument. And the pictures we had just before, these pictures of the concert, showed pretty clearly a lot of people have got there already. You could see the southern facade of the White House there over the heads of these protesters. So it's taken a slightly different turn than expected, but that's simply because it's been too successful. In a sense, it's been a victim of its own success. It's attracted so many people here. It was expecting 250,000 people, the organisers. There are now 500,000, and they were going to make their way along. If you see to the left of that, obviously you've got the Mall, you've got a row of buildings there that are the big museums, Washington museums, and to the left of that you've got another road, that is Constitution Avenue. Now the plan was to take those 250,000 marches along Constitution Avenue down from Capitol Hill, which you can see just right at the far end of the picture, down to the base of where this picture was taken from, which is the Washington Monument. They've decided, because there are so many people along that route, they're not going to march as such, but they're just simply going to, I guess, walk down. Those who want to do that, walk down to this end of the Mall and hold their protest there. That's sending a pretty clear signal, both in terms of numbers and the location, to the man who's moved into the White House to be the new president of America, that they're not happy with him, what he said about women, and what his plans are on other issues like climate change.
Planned Parenthood as well.
Planned Parenthood as well, exactly. And it's a pretty diverse mix of people, which you have to say is different. So this is a very different crowd to what we saw yesterday. It's much more like the crowd we saw 4 years ago at Barack Obama's second inauguration and 8 years ago at his first. It's the Rainbow Nation, as it's called, a mix of people of all ages, all genders, races and sexualities. So it's similar to what we saw for Barack Obama's inauguration, also in terms of the spirit, much the sort of buoyant spirit as we encountered on the march down there earlier, Kay, than we, I think, encountered yesterday, which felt more more of a deflated, a flatter atmosphere, and it was a very much whiter crowd and a very much out-of-town crowd that Trump attracted to his inauguration. And I have to say the numbers do seem to be higher, although the official figure yesterday was 900,000, 500,000 today. It just feels like there are much more people here than there were yesterday.
Okay, these are the latest images, and we have seen that image several times as stills, in fact, over the last couple of days. Not only today and the people that have been gathering today, but also we saw what happened yesterday with President Trump and his inauguration, and comparing that to what happened 4 years earlier with President Obama's inauguration.
Yeah, there have been a lot of comparisons, haven't there? And in fact, Donald Trump this morning tweeted that the crowds at his inauguration yesterday stretched all the way from Capitol Hill, which is right at the end of the Mall there. You can see that domed building just about make it out in the mist. And the Washington Monument that this camera we're seeing the picture from is right at our end, I guess, if you like, of the Mall. Now, he said the crowd stretched right the way down to this point. That is just not true.
Pants on fire on that one, President, I'm afraid.
Exactly, pretty misleading. He may react to this event in a similar way. He may tweet about that. He hasn't reacted yet. He's had a bit of a bad day on Twitter, though. He tweeted earlier that he was honoured to be the new president of America, but spelt it wrong. Spelled it H-O-N-E-R-E-D. Was widely pilloried for that on Twitter before he took it down and replaced it with the correct spelling. So he's not. I don't think he's gone back to Twitter since. But I think, probably can expect him to react to this, because he is somebody who is easily provoked, even to the more trivial of slights.
Well, we'll be hearing from him shortly, won't we? Because he is going to Langley, which is the CIA headquarters, expecting to see images from there very shortly. Meantime, this protest, this march, this rally will continue with some pretty A-list celebrity guests.
It seems as though we had all slipped into a false sense of comfort, that justice would prevail and that good would win in the end. Well, good did not win this election, but good will win in the end. So what today means is that we are far from the end. Today marks the beginning of our story. The revolution starts here. The fight for the right to be free, to be who we are, to be equal. Let's march together through this darkness, and with each step, know that we are not afraid. That we are not alone. That we will not back down.
It's been a heart-rending time to be both a woman and an immigrant in this country. Our dignity, our character, our rights have all been under attack, and a platform of hate and division assumed power yesterday. But the president is not America. We are America.
I woke up this morning, picked up the Washington Post, and the headline read, "Trump takes power." I don't think so. Here's the power. Here's the majority of America right here. New president vows to end American carnage. Mr. Trump, we are here to vow to end the Trump carnage.
President Trump, I did not vote for you. That said, I respect that you are our president-elect, and I want to be able to support you. But first, I ask that you support me. Support my sister, support my mother, Support my best friend and all of our girlfriends. Support the men and women here today that are anxiously awaiting to see how your next moves may drastically affect their lives.
Well, that's what's happening in Washington, but there have been marches right around the country and indeed right around the world as well. We're bringing you what's happening in London shortly. 600 satellite marches, sister marches as they've been described. These are the ones in Boston, about 100,000 people, Dominic, here.
Yeah, 100,000 in Boston. We think that's where Elizabeth Warren, the Massachusetts senator, addressed the crowd. She was someone who was encouraged by some to try and run instead of Hillary Clinton and chose not to. She might be an option in 4 years' time to run against Donald Trump, who knows. But also we've had very big crowds in other cities like Chicago.
Sure.
Where
they had to cancel the march, didn't they? The rally went ahead as planned, but about 150,000 people here?
Yeah, they seem to have had the same problem there, which is that the numbers turned out were such that they basically swamped the entire route of the planned march. So they couldn't really have a march as there was nowhere to march to. They'd already occupied the entire length of the route. So those are pretty impressive pictures again. And we've seen similar pictures across the country. People turning out in force, en masse, to express their opposition and disgust with a Donald Trump presidency.
Sure. President Trump's hometown of New York, where his wife and son will spend most of the week before coming back here to the White House at the weekends.
Yes, we've had this across the country. Atlanta, in Los Angeles, I think, in Denver, Colorado. A lot of people turning out. And going back to what was going on here in Washington, one picture I just showed you of
just looking at Utah pictures as you tell us what's happening here in Washington.
Park City in Utah. I mean, it's a huge turnout of people, not just in America, of course, as well. Yes, but in Washington, that video I saw on Twitter earlier of where you were on Pennsylvania Avenue yesterday, the entire length of Pennsylvania Avenue seems to be occupied by people marching, making their way towards the White House. Yesterday, in the inauguration, they had trouble getting enough people to occupy the stands looking at the parade. So it does seem to be more people out on the streets in Washington than yesterday for a protest against the president rather than those attending his inauguration yesterday, although the official figures we've yet to come in. Just one tweet here is worth drawing attention to, which is sort of the other point of view. Brad Pascal, who's the former digital director for the Donald J. Trump presidential campaign, he said, "Media, we get it. More people showed up for other events. Trump supporters are everyday Americans. $1,000 a day in DC is no joke." So he's making the point that the blue-collar workers, the unemployed people, the working-class Americans who supported Donald Trump in their millions, who don't come from around here, they're not from this side of America, they're much further away from here, the Donald Trump political base, they simply don't have the money to travel here or to stay here to make their protests known or to turn out in force for the inauguration. That's his argument anyway, and I think, it shows you there are rights and wrongs, but it shows you how polarised this country. It really is. It's two countries, America now. You've got the liberal East Coast and West Coast and people who supported Barack Obama, and that you've got those who feel they've been left out by the Obama years, who see Donald Trump as the only way to save this country and make it great again.
Yeah, expecting to hear from President Trump very shortly. He's actually gone to the heart of the CIA. He's got some bridges to mend there. Probably. Here he is very shortly in Langley. You can see the seal there on the podium. We will bring you his words. Perhaps he will refer to the demonstrations today, more likely not, but certainly we'll bring them to you live just as soon as we see the president take to the podium. But as Dominic was saying, there have been demonstrations not just here in Washington, bit of a carnival atmosphere there at the moment, but right around the country, 600 sister marches, as they've been described, right around the world. Europe as well. We've seen Berlin, we've seen Paris, and also the latest from London.
As the world woke to President Trump, the protesters gathered. 80,000 came to London, marching on Trafalgar Square with a mix of messages, but united in their determination to be heard.
Trump is a terrifying president, and I think that he's going to create so many problems for the world and for my country, but also everywhere. And I think that's why we're here in solidarity, and it's so great as an American to see all these Londoners here.
It is the first time I've done something like this, but and it's amazing, and there's so many people here, and it's great to have that.
Politics has been divided in kind of negative ways post sort of Trump, post Brexit. I think you know, it's important to try and be positive and sort of like and make positive statements about moving forward.
The movement had started on social media, but word soon spread across the globe as sister marches gained momentum.
Is there a fear, though? You're sort of preaching to the converted here today, aren't you?
I'm not sure we are. I think from what we've gathered on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, there are heaps of people out here who have never marched before. There are heaps of people out here who've never voted before, but they feel something has triggered in their hearts. They feel the need to come out.
The day began with marches in Australia and New Zealand. Thousands more joined in. As country by country, they took to the streets.
This march has mobilised many, and the thousands that have come to London today say it's not a protest against Donald Trump, but a celebration of democracy and diversity.
But despite these claims, this was a demonstration very much against Donald Trump. It won't go unnoticed by politicians, but it's unlikely to change much as the world adjusts to the new president. Laura Bundock, Sky News.